Welcome back, everybody. For today's deep dive, we're taking a look at the achievements of Steve Jobs.
Really a legend in the personal computer revolution.
And I know for a lot of you listening, especially if you're in that 25 to 55 age group, Jobs' work has probably impacted you in some pretty big ways.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you've lived through the whole evolution of technology, from those like clunky desktop to the smartphones we all have now.
Right.
And Jobs was at the forefront of that whole thing.
He was really driving a lot of that change.
So today we're going to be tracing his journey from those early days at Apple all the way through NXT, Pixar.
Oh, wow.
And then culminating with his return to Apple, where he launched so many iconic products.
Like game changers, each and every one.
The iMac, iTunes, iPod, the iPhone, the iPad. It's really amazing.
It's a whole legacy.
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
Our sources paint a picture of young Steve Jobs as a really curious kid, fascinated by electronics.
It seems like his adoptive father, Paul, really nurtured that interest.
Yeah, setting up a workbench for them to tinker around in the garage.
It's great when parents do that.
It is. So it wasn't just about the nuts and bolts for Jobs.
No.
It was about how tech could be beautiful, intuitive, almost magical.
Yeah, he understood that technology needs to be more than just functional.
Yeah.
It needs to be desirable, an extension of the user's personality.
And that's a big part of why Apple products became so iconic.
They were statements.
Not just devices.
Exactly.
And even in those early days, you can see his entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh, yeah.
That drive to create something new and impactful.
Sure.
Like, our sources talk about Jobs and Wozniak building those illegal blue boxes.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
Devices that let you make free long-distance calls.
This is a classic tale of young ambition.
Definitely. Seeing an opportunity, going for it, even if it meant bending the rules a bit.
But it also shows that he understood the business side of things, too.
Right. Not just some tucky tinkering in the garage.
Right. He saw how technology could be innovative and profitable.
Exactly. Which brings us to 1976, that famous garage in Los Altos.
The birthplace of Apple Computer.
It's such a Silicon Valley story, right?
Absolutely iconic.
And I bet it resonates with some of our listeners who started their own ventures in unconventional ways.
For sure. It speaks to that power of vision, believing in an idea even when others don't.
And maybe a little naivety, too.
Yeah, they had no idea what they were really starting.
How that little startup would change the world.
Really incredible.
So the first Apple computer, the Apple, it wasn't exactly a household name yet.
Oh, no, it's a pretty niche product.
Aimed at hobbyists and electronics enthusiasts.
Right.
But Jobs had this vision
Oh,
to sell fully assembled computers.
that was a novel idea at the time.
Most computers back then were sold as kits, like you had to put it together yourself.
Yeah, like a complicated Lego set.
Exactly. But Jobs wanted to make computers more accessible, get rid of those barriers to entry.
That was brilliant.
And it really foreshadowed his mission to make technology user-friendly.
Intuitive, easy to use.
Exactly. Who knows how many people were intimidated by those build-it-yourself computers?
Probably a lot.
And then, of course, we get to the Apple II era.
This is when things really blew up.
Yeah, the Apple II, designed mainly by Wozniak, became one of the first truly successful, mass-produced personal computers
A real turning point.
for Apple and the entire tech industry.
For sure.
And this is when computers start entering homes, schools, workplaces.
Right.
I bet for many of you listening, the Apple II was your first experience with a computer.
Probably.
It
Yeah.
really started a revolution, putting technology right into the hands of everyday people.
It's fascinating to see how something that started as a niche hobby for tech enthusiasts became this mainstream thing.
And Jobs played a huge role in that shift.
He really did.
Not just with his vision for accessible technology, but also his marketing skills.
And his design sense.
He understood that technology needs to be appealing, aspirational.
Yes.
And that leads us to probably one of the most iconic moments in tech history,
What's that?
the launch of the Macintosh.
The Macintosh.
Revolutionary on so many levels. But first, we have to talk about its predecessor, the Lisa.
The Lisa.
Wasn't it a bit of a commercial flop?
Yeah, commercially it was.
But it was groundbreaking technologically.
It was the first personal computer with a graphical user interface.
Icons, windows, a mouse.
Right.
That really laid the groundwork for what Jobs would perfect with the Macintosh. So the Lisa was like a rough draft.
And the Mac, the polished masterpiece.
Exactly. And with the Macintosh, Jobs took that user-friendly interface idea and made it magical.
Yeah.
The 1984 Super Bowl ad, remember?
Oh, with the woman throwing the hammer at the screen.
It was such a cultural moment, really captured the public's imagination.
It was a statement saying Apple was here to challenge the status quo.
To make technology more human.
Yeah, more expressive.
I bet most people listening remember exactly where they were when they saw that ad.
It was like a shot across the bow of the entire tech world.
And then the Macintosh launch itself, Jobs' presentation, everyone going wild.
Like witnessing history.
It really was. And don't forget, this was the first mass-market computer with a GUI and a mouse.
A huge departure from the command line interfaces that were common then.
It made computers intuitive, accessible, even fun.
A legacy that continues today.
Think about it. Your smartphone, tablet, laptop, the interfaces are all built on what the Macintosh started.
It's amazing.
Jobs' vision, his push for user-friendliness, totally changed how we interact with the digital world.
It's crazy to think this revolution in user experience happened in the 1980s.
Yeah, that's how far ahead of the curve he was.
He was anticipating needs that people didn't even know they had yet.
But his journey wasn't always smooth sailing.
True.
His time at NXT after leaving Apple was tough.
The NXT computer was brilliant, technologically, too expensive for most people.
Yeah, which led to struggles.
It reminds us that even the most brilliant minds can stumble.
Not everything succeeds, even for someone like Steve Jobs.
It's a good lesson.
Failure is a part of the process.
And sometimes it leads to even bigger successes later on.
Speaking of which, even though the NXT computer didn't take off,
Right.
it played a huge role in developing something massively important.
Oh. Tell me.
Get this, Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who invented the World Wide Web,
Yeah.
used an NXT computer to make the very first web browser.
Wow, you never know what little details can have massive consequences.
It shows that even in failure, there can be seeds of future innovation.
So true.
And of course, the NXT operating system
Right.
became the foundation for Apple's future operating systems
So NXT's technology eventually found its way back to Apple.
and helped shape the future of computing.
What a twist.
It really is. And while all this was happening, Jobs was busy in another industry entirely,
Really?
animation.
Oh.
And that's where Pixar comes in,
Pixar revolutionized animation.
bringing joy to millions of people.
Absolutely.
So back in 1986, Jobs bought a small computer graphics company from George Lucas.
Lucas of Star Wars fame.
Yeah, at the time it was just a little part of Lucasfilm.
But Jobs saw its potential.
He had this knack for recognizing creative talent.
And then giving them the resources and freedom to thrive.
He was really involved in Pixar,
Interesting.
not in the day-to-day filmmaking,
Right.
but with the overall vision and guidance.
And that vision led to Toy Story?
Released in 1995.
Oh, such a classic.
This wasn't just any animated film, it was the first fully 3D computer-animated feature film.
Groundbreaking, changed everything.
Captured the hearts of so many people.
Solidified Pixar's place as a storytelling powerhouse.
And it's interesting that this success with Pixar in entertainment
Yeah.
happened at the same time he was struggling with NXT
Shows how broad his interests were.
and his ability to work in different industries,
Really impressive.
like juggling and keeping all those plates spinning,
Yeah.
which leads us to a key moment for both Apple and Jobs.
Okay.
His return to Apple in 1997.
Apple was struggling then.
Yeah, a far cry from the company he had left over a decade before.
But Jobs saw an opportunity.
To rebuild Apple.
With his determination and maybe a bit of that reality distortion field.
And rebuild he did, starting with the iMac.
In 1998.
That splash of color, the Bondi blue iMacs.
I remember those.
Such a contrast to all the beige boxes everyone else had.
It was a statement. Apple was back.
The iMac was more than just a computer.
It was a design object, a symbol of creativity.
It really captured the feeling of the late 90s.
Yeah, that optimism and playfulness.
It was a huge success. Millions sold.
It felt like a cultural moment.
It did. Everyone wanted an iMac.
It was more than a computer, it was a fashion statement.
A way to express yourself.
Exactly.
And then the iPod, iTunes, and the iTunes Store.
Changing how we listened to and bought music.
A revolution in our pockets.
You could carry your whole music library everywhere you went.
And the iTunes Store made buying music online so easy and legal.
Yeah, compared to all the piracy that was happening back then.
I remember getting my first iPod.
Yeah.
It was like a personal jukebox in my hand.
For people who grew up with vinyl records and tapes,
It must have felt like magic.
it was a game changer.
And you can see Jobs' experience with Pixar influencing the iPod.
Oh, how so?
It wasn't just a device.
Right.
It was an experience connecting with your emotions through music.
Interesting.
Like he made entertainment portable and personal.
I see it.
And that focus on the user experience and emotional connection continued with the iPhone launch in 2007.
The iPhone, such a revolutionary product.
It's hard to imagine life without it now.
Yeah, the multi-touch display, the design, the way it combines music, communication, internet.
It was like something from science fiction, like holding the future in your hand.
Jobs anticipated what people would need.
More than just a phone.
Right.
People wanted a device that could connect them to the world.
And to their passions.
And to each other.
In a way that wasn't possible before.
And he delivered.
He really did.
And then, just a few years later, the iPad.
In 2010.
Creating the tablet market.
Showing, again, his ability to innovate.
And redefine entire industries. Like the iPod and iPhone before it, the iPad was something people didn't realize they needed.
Until they had it.
That blend of portability, power, user-friendliness.
He had a way of taking complex technology and making it seem effortless.
Almost magical.
And it's that magic, that connection with consumers, that defines his legacy.
So we've gone from those humble beginnings in a garage
to
completely revolutionizing how we interact with technology.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has. Welcome back to our deep dive into Steve Jobs.
It's really fascinating to think about what made him so interesting besides just the tech.
It really is, like we're trying to figure out the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
So one thing that always comes up is his leadership style.
Oh, yeah. Pretty intense.
Intense might be putting it lightly.
Our sources describe him as a total perfectionist. The kind of guy who pushed everyone around him to their limits.
It's that whole reality distortion field thing.
Right. Like, he could convince people that his vision, no matter how impossible, was the only way forward.
And to be fair, a lot of the time he was right.
He was, but it must have been hard to work under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, some people describe a culture of fear at Apple back then.
There are stories about him being really demanding.
Like firing people on the spot.
Even in elevators.
I've heard those stories.
He wasn't afraid to be blunt or make tough choices.
But people who shared his passion, his drive, they achieved amazing things.
True, he inspired a lot of loyalty in his employees.
They felt like they were part of something really special.
That's important.
So it's a complicated legacy, incredible products that changed the world, that demanding leadership style.
It shows that brilliance can be complicated.
And progress isn't always easy.
Sometimes it takes that kind of intensity to break barriers.
Moving away from his work life, our sources also reveal some things about his personal life. His relationship with his biological family.
Right, starting with his adoption shortly after birth.
Later in life, he reconnected with his biological mother.
And found out he had a sister.
The novelist Mona Simpson.
Right.
But his relationship with his biological father remained tough.
Seems that way.
A lot going on there. Probably shaped his own approach to fatherhood.
Could be.
And speaking of fatherhood, there's that whole chapter with Lisa Brennan Jobs, his first daughter.
The one he denied paternity of for years.
Yeah.
A difficult part of his story.
He eventually acknowledged her, but their relationship was rocky.
But he did name the Apple Lisa computer after her.
Interesting. Shows a level of acknowledgement, even if it was complicated.
It does speak to those contradictions within families.
And maybe a bit of regret on Jobs' part.
Possibly.
Like echoes of his personal struggles in his work.
Makes you think.
Maybe a fear of abandonment from being adopted.
A recurring theme, for sure.
It makes him more human, right?
Absolutely. He was brilliant, but also had his demons, flaws, and regrets.
I've always been interested in his personal style. The black turtleneck, jeans, sneakers.
Oh, yeah, like a uniform.
It was a carefully crafted image representing Apple's brand.
Minimalist, elegant, user-friendly.
But it also added to that idea of him as a control freak.
Obsessing over every detail, even his clothes?
Well, his attention to detail shows in his products.
Without a doubt.
Which brings us to another complex part, his approach to philanthropy.
It's been said that he wasn't known for his charitable giving.
Maybe he felt his biggest contribution was through his products, through Apple itself.
He did revolutionize many industries.
And that helped millions of people.
Definitely. But some say with his wealth came a responsibility to give back more directly.
It's a question of how we define philanthropy.
Is innovation itself a form of giving back?
Or is that just good business?
It's a debate that continues. No easy answer.
It makes me think about another aspect, his interest in Zen Buddhism.
His spiritual side.
He traveled to India looking for enlightenment, became a lifelong practitioner.
It influenced his worldview, and some say his designs, too.
It's fascinating to think how these ancient Eastern philosophies might have shaped the iPhone or iPad.
Inspiration can come from unexpected places.
It adds another layer to understanding Jobs, this tech-obsessed entrepreneur,
Also searching for deeper meaning.
drawn to the simplicity and elegance of Zen,
Like he bridged the gap between the spiritual and the technological.
infused his products with a sense of mindfulness.
Maybe that's why his products are so appealing.
They weren't just gadgets. They were tools for connection, creativity, self-expression.
Powerful stuff.
It brings us to another turning point, both triumphant and tragic.
What's that?
His battle with pancreatic cancer.
The diagnosis that shocked the world.
Diagnosed in 2003, surgery in 2004.
Sadly, it came back.
A long and difficult fight.
He had a liver transplant in 2009.
But ultimately, he lost the battle in 2011 at 56.
A devastating loss for the whole tech world.
The world mourned, and even in his final years fighting illness.
He kept working, kept innovating.
That incredible drive, refusal to give up.
It's inspiring.
Makes you wonder what else he could have done if he'd had more time.
Impossible to know, but what he achieved is incredible.
His legacy lives on. So we've seen this complicated person, brilliant, but flawed.
Who changed the world in so many ways.
And just when you think you understand him.
There's another layer, another contradiction.
Charismatic visionary 1 minute, berating an employee the next.
Master of design, but also a bit of a recluse.
Valued simplicity, but lives a complex life.
Like multiple people in one.
That's what makes him so fascinating.
His story isn't simple, it's messy, contradictory, surprising.
We're all trying to piece together this puzzle.
Trying to understand what made him tick, what drove him.
A question that will be debated for years.
No easy answers.
That's part of what makes his story so compelling.
For sure.
It keeps unfolding, even after his death.
It does.
I think, despite all the controversy, all the complexities, one thing is clear about Steve Jobs.
What's that?
His impact on the world was huge.
It was.
He was a true visionary, a pioneer who dared to think differently.
Absolutely.
And change the course of history. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the legacy of Steve Jobs.
It's amazing how, even though he's been gone for a while,
Yeah.
his influence is still so strong.
It really is. His vision seems to keep rippling out, shaping how we use technology.
Absolutely.
I mean, he totally transformed the tech landscape.
He did.
Personal computers, smartphones, tablets, digital music, app stores.
Things we can hardly imagine living without now.
It's true.
And it's not just the products themselves, it's how he approached technology.
That focus on user experience.
Yeah, simplicity, elegance, making it all feel intuitive.
Almost magical.
That approach still inspires designers and engineers.
He set a new standard for what we expect from our devices.
We want them beautiful, seamless, empowering.
Right. He understood tech wasn't just about the tech itself.
It was about human connection.
Creativity, self-expression.
He saw tech as a tool to make our lives better.
Not to make them more complicated.
And that idea is still so powerful.
It really is. And his influence goes beyond just tech.
Oh, yeah.
Look at how products are marketed today. That focus on design, storytelling, creating a brand people want to be part of.
He was a master at that.
A brilliant marketer.
He understood emotion, creating desire, making people feel like they're part of something bigger.
He wasn't selling products, he was selling a lifestyle.
An aspiration.
And that's had a huge impact on how we see brands today.
Definitely.
And then there's Pixar.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't just build a studio. He redefined what animation could be.
Right. Think about those films, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles.
They're works of art.
Pushing the boundaries of technology and storytelling.
They're not just entertaining, they've got real emotional depth.
And complex characters, timeless themes.
I remember seeing Toy Story in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike anything I'd seen before.
You can really see Jobs' influence in those films.
Yeah, his passion for storytelling and artistic excellence.
He knew how powerful a good story can be.
And Pixar really embodies that vision.
It does.
But of course, with any complex figure,
There's always another side.
there are criticisms, controversies.
What were some of those?
Some said he was too controlling,
Uh-huh.
too focused on profit, dismissive of anyone who disagreed with him.
He wasn't perfect.
He wasn't a saint, that's for sure.
A flawed genius, as they say.
But those imperfections, those contradictions,
And make his story even more interesting.
it's true.
A reminder that brilliance can be messy,
Even the best minds are still human.
with all the complexities that come with that.
And his legacy isn't without its challenges.
How so?
The tech world he helped build is facing some big issues.
What kind of issues?
Privacy, data security, misinformation.
Oh, wow.
the impact of social media on our mental health.
That's a lot.
We're still trying to figure out how to deal with all of that.
Makes you wonder what Jobs would have thought about these things.
Yeah, what would he have done?
We can't know, but his successes and failures can teach us something.
As we navigate this ever-changing tech world,
I think that's important.
it's a reminder that innovation comes with responsibility
That we have to think about how our creations affect the world,
and prioritize human values.
even as we strive for progress.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
So as we wrap up our look at Steve Jobs,
Greg?
what does his story mean to you?
That's a good question.
What resonates with you? What lessons can you take away from all this?
It's up to each of us to decide what his legacy means.
What lessons we learn, how we apply them to our own lives.
That's a powerful idea.
Remember Steve Jobs, the man who dared to dream different,
Who changed the world?
whose story, with all its ups and downs, still inspires us today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.